I don't consent to these people getting away with this. Like, enact your will. I'm actually getting cold shivers just saying this because it is so incredibly powerful. Exactly. And I think we are so programmed to not believe in how powerful we are.
Right.
You know, and that's why people believe, oh, well, what can I do? And it does feel like that sometimes. It can feel like that. Like, you feel so helpless when these things are happening at such a huge scale. It does feel a little like, oh, well, what can little old me do? But just knowing that you have power and you can speak your power into existence, just start there.
Epstein, in the long run, at the end of the day, like, they've lost. They lost the second they decided that they were going to hurt little children, and the second they were going to use that as leverage to gain political control and influence and power, and like whether it's the whole freaking nation of Israel, that like the Mossad that's behind it and all of that. They might feel like they're on top at the moment, but this shit collapses as like way faster than it was built. Mm-hmm. You're listening to Natural AF, the podcast exposing suppressed truths about health, reality, and human potential. I'm your host, Isaac. I'm the founder of Natural Art Form, and I'm joined by my Australian co-host and partner, Alexa, a Psych K facilitator and human design coach. If you're ready to challenge the status quo and explore how the world really works while staying grounded in your deepest purpose, then you're in the right place. Thanks for joining us. Let's get Natural AF. All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is another fantastic episode of Natural AF. This one's going to be a little different from what we've done in the past. We're not interviewing any guests today. We're going to have a little chat, and I've got some interesting perspective and some eye-opening stuff that I've found through some of the revelations coming out about all this Epstein emails and all that. And just as a preemptive, just know that I'm not a black pill person, and I'm also not a white pill person. So
there's a white pill? Haven't heard that one before.
It's just the idea that it's like, oh, it's fine. Everything's great. The white hats are taking it.
Oh,
everyone's in control.
Hats, the white hats.
Yeah.
I have an issue with the white hats. Just in that, I think that's a bit of a psyop. Like, it's just feeds into that whole, someone's coming to save us. There's a group out there. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people out there doing good. I don't think that everyone that's rich is necessarily evil. You know, I've heard lots of things thrown around like, oh, Donald Trump's really a white hat and these people are really white hats. I'm like, no, that's definitely not the case. Definitely not.
Right. Yeah. And we'll get into that. We'll have some more, some funny stuff. There'll be a little bit of lighthearted element to it. It's not just going to be like into the depths of the darkness. If you're watching this show, you might already be on to a lot of this stuff. You know, we tend to attract people with very inquisitive minds that have their own, perspective on things. So yeah, you're right at home. You'll probably know some of what I'm talking about. And if not, I'll do like a quick recap of what we know and some thoughts and some funny videos. But before we get into the episode, why is this important? So Natural AF, obviously we're interested in building the path forward, finding the way forward. And that's why we've partnered with, other community groups and surrounding ourselves with people we can trust. People like Alex Zek and The Way Forward. I've been really close with Owen Benjamin and the Bears back in the States and, in Australia as well, and like all over the world.
The Living Free movement here in Australia, we're very close with and we work with. And we do lots of stuff with them. Amazing community of people.
Yeah, it's all about community. The most important thing, like, you can probably put up a chart if I had it, but it was like, you've done this with some of your presentations where it's like your connection between you and God, that's like number one. And it's also kind of like between you and yourself.
Yeah, your relationship with yourself. Yeah.
And then your relationship with your partner, and then your relationship with your kids, and then your circle goes out from there. And externalizing too much of your attention is where you get into this like hopelessness, or then like the hope crash thing when you think someone's a hero and they're going to save you and they turn out to be a scumbag, and then you find another hero. Save yourself the trouble and stop that roller coaster cycle and just start building community, connecting with people, even if you don't agree with everything they say. There's people that we interact with all the time that, privately we're like, yeah, I'm not crazy about this perspective, but we're friends and they're a good person. They're not like,
yeah, and you're never going to, like, even with family, you're never going to agree with anyone really on 100% of everything. Same as you and I. Like, there's lots of things that we disagree on. But it's having the capacity to be able to hold the other perspective without getting super triggered. And sometimes you do, but like we've had conversations sometimes like in the past where like I've gotten super triggered, but always and we always have that perspective is like take that as an opportunity to look within yourself and be like, well, why is that triggering me so much? And it's really interesting the things that can come up. So, if any part of this conversation feels, which I think for our listeners is, I think they're going to hear this and be like, yeah, we know for a lot of people. But if you are hearing any of this stuff for the first time, like if it does bring up stuff within you, really just sit with it and ask yourself the question, why? And honestly, you might be surprised why. And I was actually just talking about this on my Instagram yesterday because I really do, and I don't think I've actually ever said this on this show, which is surprising, but I'm really over the cancel culture, the self-censorship kind of culture that's so rampant now, especially in the mainstream, where people can't say certain words because one, they are so triggered by it that they just can't even say the word, or two, which I think is what's playing out more prominently, is they're scared to offend other people. And we just need to stop that. We need to stop because being scared to say something because, it might offend someone or someone might take issue with it, like that's their problem. That's not your responsibility to censor yourself for other people. And again, those people are getting offended because really what I see more than anything is that people don't even personally get offended by it. They get offended on behalf of other people. Usually people that they don't even know, like groups of people that they don't even know or associate with.
Yeah, it's a pattern. It's
crazy. And it just needs to stop. That's all I'm going to say. We need to stop. We need to move on.
Yeah.
We need to take responsibility for ourselves and ourselves only. Well, I won't say ourselves only, ourselves first and foremost. And then obviously if you have children, you have to be responsible for your children and your family. But that's like you just said, and I was also talking about this on my Instagram yesterday. It's really interesting because in human design, we're moving from in 2027, there's a move from the energy of the cross of planning, which is very much a tribal energy. So this is more of the energy of, the guru and looking externally to these hero figures and relying on external systems. And we can see that that's starting to crumble already, the systems and people really pedestaling them. And we're moving into the cross of the sleeping phoenix, which is very individual energy. We're moving into an era of individual empowerment. And so I think this is why this is like fresh in my mind at the moment, because I'm like, we're going to see this shift happen and we're starting to see it. And that's what it's really going to come down to, is empowering yourself to do your thing, live authentically, and that's how you have impacts. Like you said, like that then filters down through your family and then into your community. I believe that's how we truly change the world.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because it's nauseating, to be honest, when people get offended on behalf of others.
Yeah.
I get the idea of like, you want to stand for something. People want to like have a line in the sand and they want to, but a lot of that stuff is literally programmed into them.
Yeah.
And they get offended because they've been trained to.
Yeah.
They've been told that, that's a naughty word.
Yeah.
You can't say that word. Only they can say that word.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't criticize those people. They because of all this like trauma and all this stuff in their past. And it's like, they use that as a shield. And as you'll see in some of this stuff, there's a big group that, or maybe a small group that has this making big waves. And obviously we're not going to lump everybody into it. It's more about the behavior.
Yeah.
And if you can't criticize the behavior because they are a part of a group, then I got news for you. Like that ain't going to wash. That turd don't flush, as they say in Texas. And I don't play those games. And so you
don't play that shit.
Exactly. We aren't here to just purposefully just be like, riding the edge and just throwing stuff in people's faces and pissing everyone off. But just keep in mind, like, I will piss people off just by being. Like, I've literally been hanging out with friends and then somebody randomly comes up and wants to fight me for no reason. Like, I'm not interacting with them at all. And that's indicative of my, what is it? The cross of tension that I have.
I was like,
and I have this like line of provocation or whatever. What is that channel?
You've got, he's got, well, the gate of provocation is in your incarnation cross.
Right.
And that's the cross of tension, is like, he was literally here to push people's buttons, and not for just for the sake of being combative, but it's so that like what we're saying, it's so that people have then the opportunity to see things within themselves that they may not have otherwise seen if they weren't provoked. Yeah.
Yeah. And part of that is just this disruptive energy that's important. How many times were you told in school, like, oh, don't disrupt the class? How dare you be disruptive? Don't be disruptive. Well, what are the biggest changes? What are the big tech companies that come out? What do? They disrupt stuff. Uber comes and disrupts the whole taxi thing and create something new and useful and helpful, there's all sorts of layers in all these things. But that disruptive energy, it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but it's necessary for growth and
absolutely.
For, people running into parts of themselves that maybe they've suppressed and suppressed and suppressed, and it's time for that to come out. So
So that's
sorry,
why,
not sorry.
Yeah. So that's why, this topic, you might feel like, they're covering like a news topic, which, we said we were going to start doing, but it's not just because it's in the news. It's because, we have our own insights into that and what's going on a grander scale. And we're going to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, this idea that the disruption, like it's all about activating in you, giving you tools and ideas and inspiration and showing you that you're not the only one that sees through this stuff or sees, these little things that we're aware of. They're actually decision points, crossroads, if you like to say. And that's kind of built into, I'll talk about natural art form for a little bit. That's kind of built into the way we're doing natural art form. Recently, I just started doing my own oil extracts here with comfrey and with calendula. And I was brought through the crossroads. You'll see why the crossroads, I keep doing that, will come into play towards the end. But this crossroads idea is, it's tied to Mercury. We'll get into that. But I was made to make a decision by being brought to this decision point where I didn't have access to the oils that I needed to make my product. And so instead of just being like, oh, what do I do? Oh, like get mad. Oh, they're closed. They don't have the stuff or they're out or whatever. Just find a solution and keep going forward. And I realized like I can literally make my own oil extracts. It just is a little bit more work. And Alexa was a little bit nervous about that because we don't have much space in our little kitchen area, but we made it happen. And what's amazing about that is now my being and my thought process has shifted about natural art form to where I'm even more engaged in creating something even more unique and special and potent by being able to like there's methods that I came across through my research and the way I dig into stuff where I can literally pull out 2 to 4 times as much the active medicinal components of things like comfrey and calendula. So that's going to take us forward with a big step forward in the future. So
just when we thought the quality couldn't get any better.
Yeah.
It got better.
You'd be surprised. And like a big part of the reason, one, it was just finding a solution that wasn't out there for myself. And having the knowledge, like I was in the medical industry, sort of. I was trained by the Special Operations Combat Medicine School in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And in the past, that's why I'm pointing back this way. It's like I've moved forward since then. And I still bring all the talents and skills and everything else. You don't have to just abandon all of that because, the medical hoax and the, vaccines are nonsense and viruses don't exist. You don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You can take some valuable lessons forward with you into the future and make use of them. Be like a survivalist. When a survivalist comes across a plastic bag, everyone else just goes by and it's like, oh, it's a piece of trash, piece of rubbish. Get rid of it. Well, a survivalist, if you're in a situation where you need it, that plastic bag can be like 5 different things. You can make a lot of different uses out of one little thing because you don't have anything else. And I think that's part of the value of going through a bit of a crisis and a bit of like, I'm injured. This stuff isn't working. I don't want to poison myself with pharmaceuticals. Like, how do I do something different that I can't find out there? I can't go to the store and buy it. So I'm going to make it. So that's the energy we put into it. And literally, I think that driving forward, solve the problem energy is literally like encoded into the water and the magnesium oil and stuff in the products we make.
I think it's encoded in your DNA specifically.
Yeah. And so as much as I can, I'm passing that energy on to everyone else. But anyway, so if you want to support the show and support what we're doing here and help your body out with some really effective natural remedies, go to naturalartform.com. Use code NaturalAF10 for 10% off your order. And thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter as you will get some very interesting and useful chunks of knowledge and things as we release them. And then also you'll be able to stay in contact with us and know when we're going to be at different markets. And you can come see us. So the markets at the moment are currently in the Northern Rivers region of Australia. So just be aware of that. If you're listening from somewhere else around the world, we are not doing markets in London as of yet. So, all right. So moving beyond that, getting into some of the nitty gritty, just to like back up a little bit. So everyone knows like, okay, Epstein, bad dude, supposedly died in prison, all that stuff. I learned a couple things that I didn't know. And I guess, okay, one thing that I want to start with, okay, so he's literally like convicted and spent time in jail as a convicted like pedo, rapist, human trafficker, like serious things. In fact, there was a 54-page federal indictment that was brought against him that apparently somebody read and just dismissed. And he was, instead of going to prison for life, which is what he was actually up against back in 2008. And y'all remember what happened back in 2008, right? We had a big financial collapse, big financial crisis that started in America. And, just one note, Epstein is called by the media today, the ones that try to whitewash everything, they just call him a failed financier. And as you'll see here going forward, he's not a failed financier. In fact, he was very effective at the things that he was involved with. And it wasn't just him. Obviously, he's just the name in the news. But anyways, he would have been in prison for life for the stuff that he did involving kids and trafficking and all this stuff. The justice, who is named Alexander Acosta, no relation to the Acosta of CNN. There was a Jim Acosta that I personally loathe from CNN. No relation, allegedly. But anyways, Epstein was basically allowed, he was given like 18 months sentence at I think it was a Palm Beach County jail thing in California.
It was in New York. Oh, no, this was Palm back Beach. In 2008.
2008.
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
He served 13, and when I say served, he served 13 years of his sentence, or sorry, 13 months of an 18-month sentence. But guess what it was actually like? It wasn't even just like a tennis court prison setup. It was like
a white collar prison.
Not even close. He was granted work release. So for 12 hours a day, he was allowed to leave literally in a private limo, picked him up at the jail, the county jail, took him to his office, and he was allowed to be out of jail 12 hours a day.
Wow.
Where he was basically unsupervised because he also had private security, not prison guards, not police from and if they were police, they were off duty and he paid them.
Yeah.
And this is all known. This is stuff that you can find on, just do a Google search or an AI search and you can find all this information.
It reminds me of like Big Pharma. Like Big Pharma, like if you look up, Pfizer's track record or Merck or like all of them, they've paid billions of dollars in fines, billions over the years. But they're still allowed to produce
for death, for people dying because of their treatments.
In their clinical trials, and they pay and like we think like billions, that's just like a slap on the wrist for them. And then they're still allowed to continue making these products that harm people.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that. It's like the exact same thing. It's like there's, what's that saying? There are rules for thee and rules for me. That's exactly what that is.
Yeah, exactly. And I get it. It's frustrating. We see this level of injustice and people are, understandably very, very upset.
Yeah. And also like just in light of this, everyone's like, the Epstein files have come out. And just because it's on the mainstream media now, it's like, I was just like, and? I'm like, so? Like when he actually got sent to jail and it was going through the court and, Ghislaine Maxwell, whatever happened with her as well. That was what, years ago now, 2021, 2022 or something like that, around that time. And all of the stuff, I'm assuming, because I actually haven't, I don't know what they've released in the Epstein files, but everything I'm hearing, we already knew about back then, and instead of everyone like being all up in arms now about it and the files. And also I think there's been a big, so we don't watch the news, but we were in Sydney recently. It's the only time we see the news when we're with our family because they all have it on at their places. And, you know, what I'm seeing in the mainstream is that there's a heavy focus on the fact that Donald Trump is tied to him. So of course there's so much, you know, in the media about Donald Trump and them trying to take him down, whatever. So there's that. And then, but, you know, I literally just saw this interview with Bill Gates because he's visiting Australia or he was at least last week.
Interesting.
And they brought it up in the interview. They asked him. And it was actually laughable, the answer that he gave. And obviously, like, guys, in these situations, like, he knows the questions he's getting. He wasn't, like, put on the spot. He knows the questions he's getting. He knows what his answer is going to be.
In fact, his PR probably gave the questions to the news and said, you will read this question for him.
Probably, yeah.
That's how they do it. Yeah.
And so his answer when asked about, like, the emails, obviously some emails have come out in these files. And when he was asked about the emails between him and Jeffrey Epstein, he basically said that, well, he sent those emails to himself. And so they didn't actually come through to me. I never received those. And it was such a ridiculous and like it felt like when a 5-year-old gets put on the spot and they just make up the most absurd lie that you know is a lie. Yeah. And then it's like, okay. And then they just move on to, you know, the next question about why he's visiting Australia. And it's like.
Yeah. Interesting timing that the emails that they were asking him about, where they didn't even mention like what they were actually entailing, was basically him and Epstein were discussing and collaborating on a COVID like exercise back in 2017. They pre-planned, of course, like we know this, a lot of people who listen to us know this, like the whole COVID hoax thing was planned years in advance.
Yeah. Event 201 and all of that.
Yeah. It was social conditioning, societal engineering operation. Bill Gates is a part of that. It's also a eugenics program, which is part of who Epstein is. And we'll get into it. Like when I say is, like he might still be around.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't give a shit, but I do, like, I know that, like, I'd like somebody to hit him with a bus, but like I can't make that happen, you know. But anyways, Gates, definitely tied to like this whole.
So my whole point about that is that the files coming out, and I've heard people talking about this, like, you know, like I said, us and a lot of the people that we hang out with and know, like we've known all this stuff. We've known all this stuff for years. It's nothing new. And instead of everyone getting like, you know, oh my God, this stuff's all come out, oh my God, and the victims and blah, 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 blah. It's like, maybe we should be questioning why they're releasing it now, why it's all over mainstream media, because quite often it's the people that are very heavily involved in this stuff that are the same people that are putting it out for whatever their agenda is.
Yeah, it makes sense that you would do a controlled release or a pressure release. I don't really have an opinion on that at the moment because I see that they tried to do that before. They tried to like squeeze it and like limited it. Something else happened. They literally passed a law. It was like the Epstein Files Act or something in the US. I don't know too much about the history of that. But they literally they forced the DOJ to do that.
Right.
And by they, I mean, it had to have been lawmakers in Congress. Like that's the best that I can tell. There could be a karma thing, or there could be a spiritual thing of it as well, where it's like, you can't run from this anymore. Like it's Judgment Day, supposedly, and maybe there's some good things coming out of it. I don't know. But I don't think that they're putting it out there just because they have this like 5D chess plan. I think it's like, it's coming out. One way or another, it's coming out. They're just trying to manage how it's coming out.
Yeah, well, but that's what I mean. It's like, oh, and Trump was associated with him and Bill Gates was associated with him. It's like anyone that looked into this stuff, you know, a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when it was all sort of happening and like he, quote unquote, got caught. Because even that, he's just a scapegoat. He's not the only one involved in this. This is systemic.
Might even be a small fish in this whole thing.
For sure. And they do this with all of the, like whenever you see like, you know, what are they called? Like a judge gets done with child porn. Like that's just a scapegoat. That didn't really solve the problem. There's like 100 more where he came from. So they do this all the time. And I don't know. For me, I feel like there's something in the timing of it. And again, they also do this stuff. They release these things around certain cosmological events, let's say. So there could be something to that. But also, like, I think with, you know, the circumstances around his so-called death, like, I don't believe for a second that he's dead. Like, the fact that they removed his soulmate the night he died, the cameras stopped the night he died, or whatever.
Yeah.
I think maybe there was too much heat then for them to officially make this, like, to release this, because I feel like they've obviously removed him, they've relocated him, and I think obviously they're not going to want eyeballs, you know, on that in the media when they're kind of doing all that stuff. So
yeah, at least not until they've planned it, or at least when they want to.
Yeah.
But there's other intelligence agencies involved in all this, and I don't believe that they're all on the same page. I think there's elements within each of these where they have these hooks and they have these points of lever.
Yeah, it's very compartmentalized.
And it's a complicated system of leverage, blackmail, loyalty, because a big part of that too is, like, if you're willing to do the most heinous acts, all the rest of you that are also willing to do those heinous acts, it's like you're bound together through this, like, blood brotherhood of some sort, a sick, sick kind. So it's like a sigil of, like, loyalty.
Well, and then there's also a lot of blackmail involved, obviously, because if they are partaking in certain acts and they've got, I mean, that's that was what was found. Like, Epstein had so much footage of all of this stuff. And so and again, that's why this is a systemic operation, because they use it to control people in so-called power, positions of power.
And those people are, like, make no mistake, those people are being held account to some degree or another. There's a lot going on in the UK and in Europe. More in Europe. I mean, it touches, like, Norway. There was a woman that she was a diplomat in Norway, and Epstein gave her children $10 million, which I think anything involving children, it's not just that they were, like, a part of his, like, human trafficking, but he was literally breeding. And I'll get into some of that. Like, it's a breeding operation. There's a lot going on. It's not just one thing.
Please get into that now. Like, what do you mean by that?
I'll show you.
Okay. Wow.
So for those listening, this is Epstein. This is the Island Boys. And there's images of Epstein on an island somewhere with these 2 or 3 young boys whose faces match up identically to these hip hop group, the Island Boys. I don't know. I don't listen to their stuff. Let me see if we watch it again.
Who Epstein is?
Yes.
How do you know about him?
Because he's your dad. You showed me a picture.
So this is like an Instagram video of, like, a live stream with him and his girlfriend or whatever. And yeah, they look a lot like Epstein, and they're twins, and they're also, like, being gay together.
Yeah,
which is
that's so
disgusting.
weird.
And obviously, like, you look at them, they're tattooed all over their faces, all over their whole body. They've got basically, like, charm bracelets worth of, like, little tiny tattoos all over their face, all these little collection of symbols. And to me, it just looks like demons. So
yeah, wow. So you think that, like, Epstein has purposely... Oh, wow. I'm actually a little bit speechless. I've never heard of this before, that he has children.
yeah, it's crazy. So that's just, like, the beginning of that. There's a lot more, going on than just those kids. The Island Boys, there's, people in, like, politics. There's people on, like, news channels and all kinds of stuff. And, well, like, we interviewed Rachel Vaughn about this. Like, she knows, like, she knows about the breeding programs, and they do these sex rituals on a certain time, and they give birth to certain individuals for certain purposes. They train them up to be, like, super soldiers, or they train them up to work in the media, or to, you know.
Yeah, they're definitely groomed for certain roles. Yeah.
And more than just a cursory glance through people in Hollywood, in movies, like the big stars, look at how many of them look similar. Look at how many people look like other actors. You know, you've got even, like, Will Ferrell and the drummer from, what band is that? Is it Foo Fighters, or is it
I have
a different
no
band.
idea.
Will Ferrell looks just like the drummer from another band. Anyways,
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those like conspiracy videos going around, and it's like, I don't know. We'll never know, right? It's like, I mean, I often see people, just random people that I don't know, that I'm just like, oh my God, they look like almost exactly like this person. Like they have very similar features, of someone that I do know. So honestly, who knows? Especially when you start looking into like, more of the Hollywood side of things. It's like, there's some crazy shit that goes on.
yeah. All right. So to kind of frame that clip or give you a little more context. So that was one of the guys from the Lonely Boys, the Island Boys. I keep thinking Los Lonely Boys or Lost Island Boy. I get them confused. I don't listen to that music. But they're the ones that got the crazy hair and they got tattoos all over. They look demented to me.
They look demonic. Yeah, totally.
And they're supposed to be brothers and they're doing gay stuff together and it's gross. And that video was just him, one of the guys and some girl. And she was saying like, he asked her, do you know who Epstein is? She said, yeah, it's your dad. You showed me a picture. And then they cut to a picture of a couple of little kids. They look like maybe 7, 8 years old. There's a few kids and they look like these kids exactly. So that's part of a well-known thing about Epstein, was that he was not just trafficking people, but having children with as many people as he could.
Wow.
And this goes back to like, I mean, this reeks of like the old Nazi super soldier programs and a lot of the stuff that like some of the same things we heard from Rachel Vaughn about the breeding programs that these so-called elites have. The parasitic class, we'll call them.
Well, it's interesting because I remember listening to an interview with Shane Bales, who, for anyone that doesn't know him, he's a bloodline Illuminati, but left. Like he actually worked within the organization and then left. And he speaks pretty openly. And he says that this alleged depopulation plan, he describes it as a repopulation plan. And that's what he says. He's like, it's actually not about reducing the population. It's about creating the population that they want.
Yeah.
Which this makes perfect sense now.
Yeah. And I want to say something about this that I don't hear anyone else talking about, frankly. Early on in some of my awakening, like years and years and years ago, a friend of mine sent me a few videos from a guy named Sean Hross, Hross. Mm-hmm. Sean Hross is a filmmaker, researcher, and he's a bit out there. But he speaks Demotic, which is an Egyptian pharaonic language that was spoken by the pharaohs. And he can translate words into that. Anyways, his predominant theory and what he's made a very good case for is that the stonemason builders of the Egyptian lineage, the pharaonic lineage, the stone being Stein, the last name Stein, is tied to this pharaonic lineage. And this coincides with the birth of the nation of Switzerland in the 1300s, founded by Knights Templar who escaped the Friday the 13th massacre, which is where the whole Friday the 13th being this cursed day came from, which coincidentally is this next Friday.
Yeah.
So Friday the 13th, and I've been there in France, in Paris. There's a little island with a statue monument on there of one of these Knights Templar, and that's supposedly the spot on the river Seine. Is that how you say it? Seine? On the river Seine in Paris, where all of the Templars were supposedly all slaughtered, which didn't really happen. They left. They were kicked out. They left and went to Switzerland and founded that. And they've had a breeding program from the pharaonic days going way, way back. This coincides with England, the UK. This is public, I don't know if this is Time Magazine or Newsweek, something a long time ago, decade or more ago, put out that 60 to 70% of residents or citizens in the UK had pharaonic DNA. They had some lineage bloodline connection directly to Pharaoh in Egypt. I don't know which Pharaoh, but that was put out as like a main story. So if you're following what I'm saying, this matches up with what Sean Hross, what his conclusion was with his research, that it's all about the bloodline, it's all about the lineage, but it goes back to what we know of as the Egyptian pharaoh. And the pharaoh if you know the movie Braveheart, there's a very emotionally like triggering scene where the Lord is granted prima nocta the night of someone's wedding, where the Lord was given by the king the right to have sex with the woman the night of her marriage in order to breed out the undesirables or the people that they were trying to rule over in England. That prima nocta practice was real, and it was originated in Egypt with the pharaohs. That's literally how they took over and made and brought two kingdoms together, the Northern Kingdom, or the Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. So, in my opinion, Epstein is not necessarily Jewish. They use that as a crafty little mask for their program, for their culture. This is like a hidden culture of breeding and influencing and controlling the world through some very dark practices, and then literally just populating with people that you can control or have loyalty to you or some kind of connection.
Okay, because that was my question. I was like, what's his motive to do that? Especially when these boys seemingly like he hasn't raised but obviously that makes sense, like the loyalty and that connection, like you obviously can keep some form of control over them, because I imagine there's probably
well, who put them into hooked them up with the producers in the music industry and gave them money and put them on tour.
Oh, is that who they are?
Yeah.
These boys? Because I've never.
Yeah,
this is the first time
they're
I've
performers.
seen that. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I mean. So obviously there's, it reminds me of the old, that the rich, where the children are controlled because they get their allowances and they're looked after, and that's how they control them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you don't do what they want, you're cut off from your finances. You're outed publicly, but this is like, again, like to quote Nicki Minaj recently, if you haven't heard that, the jig is up, as she put it. She said all of your favorite, like all the biggest pop stars and all this stuff, they're literally in a religion where they do horrible things to kids from foreign countries and blood rituals and all that.
And again, we don't bring this up to scare people. Like I've said this before on this show. We can't just bury our head in the sand. We can't, hear about this stuff, but not want to know anything about it. Now, I'm not saying you have to I never went down those rabbit holes personally, as in like to the depths that, my mum did, because she she had to know everything. And she just told me certain things, and I was like, I can't look at that. Like, it literally makes me sick, which is a normal human reaction to the horrific things that they do. However, we still need to take action. And that doesn't look like we don't need to go and riot and protest and like do all these things. Like, I'm not saying it's wrong if you do that, but like it really needs to come down to simply enacting your will. That's really all it comes down to. So like Isaac has shared on this show and with everyone that we know, he is like a master of, I don't know what you call it, sky clearing. And when he sees the chemtrails going over, he literally just looks up at them. He often points at them and says, I do not consent to you, doing this to my sky, whatever. And we've literally seen in 30 seconds later, the chemtrail turn into what looks like an angel in the sky. Like, it's incredible, the stuff that can happen just from simply enacting your will. And this is the same thing. It comes down to something as simple as if you see or hear something so horrific, literally just speaking it into existence. We, again, in human design, the throat is the manifestation center. It's what we communicate, the energy that we communicate outwards. And just saying, I don't consent to this happening. I don't consent to these people getting away with this. Like, enact your will. I'm actually getting cold shivers just saying this because it is so incredibly powerful. Exactly. And I think we are so programmed to not believe in how powerful we are.
Right.
And that's why people believe, oh, well, what can I do? And it does feel like that sometimes. It can feel like that. Like, you feel so helpless when these things are happening at such a huge scale. It does feel a little like, oh, well, what can little old me do? But just knowing that you have power and you can speak your power into existence, just start there.
Yeah. That's what we're all about. And that's what we like to promote. And, thank you for that. I'm not a master of sky clearing.
I
but
think you are. He's pretty good at it.
yeah, it could be something, like with, I don't know, my soul aura or just the will and the connection to it, but and the faith. I think that's a big part of it, is believing that we are given authority by our creator here on this earth. Mm-hmm. And I go a step further even as well. Like I have an allegiance and alliance with who I believe is the rightful king of this realm, which is Yeshua, which is Christ, the king, both in like the physical man form of it, but also the Christos, as they say, within. Mm-hmm. And as Jesus pointed out, the kingdom of heaven is within. And so if you really take that seriously and you really start peeling back the layers of what that means, that Christ is given authority over heaven and earth, basically, by the creator. And that's what I'm doing when I'm going out there and speaking to that. I'm not saying this from a point of ego and being like, I can control the weather and this and that. Mm. It's more of like an indignance, like, how dare you try to poison us? How dare you think that we don't see what you're doing, and that because you have plausible deniability that you can somehow get away with it? No, it does require us to speak and say it. And I speak it over the water as well. I speak exactly like in detail what I want to have happen to these people running around committing these acts. Sometimes I speak protection over my family. I speak protection over myself. And men in particular, and women too, like our own unique way of coming to this, speaking what we want over our lives and our families. But men are like the protector, right? And I think a lot of this stuff has taken place because men have been set aside. I see it more of like a long-term thing that they started doing back in World War I, World War II, is they killed off as many honorable, good, alpha, Bravo, like solid in Delta men, like these in the hierarchy that took accountability, didn't ask anyone else to go serve in their place. They went and took it. They took the fight to who they were brainwashed into believing were the enemies. And that's all coming home to roost. And the enemy first is within. You got to fight and beat the part of you that is a non-action taker, the part of you that is an excuse maker, the part of you that is, it just wants to be entertained and whatever, just to numb out and take responsibility and say what you want to have happen, and then also be willing to take the action necessary to see that come about. So a lot of this stuff, I could keep going into like all the different ins and outs of all the dark stuff, this and that, but there's one thing that I haven't heard too many people talking about from this exact perspective. And before I get into this next part, I want to play a clip from Dan Pena. Dan Pena is he's a kind of a investing expert guru guy. He's very wealthy. He's, I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he's up there.
I'm pretty sure he is. So I actually came across this clip for the first time in like 2022. No idea who Dan Pena was. Still don't know that much about him. And I remember seeing it and thinking, well, let's just play it first.
Yeah.
If you knew who was really behind Bitcoin, you would run as fast as you fucking could to sell it. I know. 100%. If you knew who owned Bitcoin or who started Bitcoin, you had Bitcoin, you couldn't sleep at night. I know. 100%. And when the real founder of Bitcoin comes out, it is my humble opinion, and there's nothing humble about me, Bitcoin will go to fucking zero.
One day.
And a microsecond, whoop, like that.
So when I first saw that, and I was very new to crypto and Bitcoin and learning all about it.
When did that come out? Do you remember?
I don't know, but I saw it in 2022. So it was probably around that time. It was probably around that time he'd done an interview, because that's when I first saw it. It could have been older than that. I'm not sure. And it made me so curious, because there's always been this question, around who created Bitcoin. And when you shared what you've heard about this, I was like, oh, I know what Dan Pena's talking about now.
Yeah, it
so
clicked.
Crazy.
It did. It clicked. Now, this isn't going to be speculation. Part of this is just from what's been in the emails. So from what I know, from what I've read, so Epstein was not just a casual observer of Bitcoin. He was an early strategic funder of its core infrastructure and one of the largest early investors in the exchange Coinbase.
Wow.
Coinbase was one of the first big crypto exchanges.
Yeah.
So in March 2014, and you guys can go and don't just believe my word for it. Go and do your own research. You can search through the Epstein files if you're interested. Do keyword search for Bitcoin or whatever, and you'll find it. March 2014. So there's a crypto exchange called Mt. Gox, and it collapsed in 2014 in March, or just before then, I think. Mm-hmm. My brother actually lost a bit of Bitcoin in that one. I think it was in Mexico, if I remember correctly, the exchange Mt. Gox. So that brought the price of Bitcoin down significantly. And then at that point, just as it was starting to climb back up, that's when Epstein came in with a large amount of money and essentially took control of it. Mm-hmm. So for people that are out there saying that Epstein was Satoshi Nakamoto, the supposed guy that invented it, who wrote the code, he's not that. But he took control of it in 2014. And in this kind of world, like, they know when these things are going to happen. When the Mt. Gox thing happened, like it's all tied into this network. It's safe to say that they were expecting it. There was a plan. But consider what Bitcoin would be useful for someone like that, someone that's trafficking in children and, taking money from multiple different high-level officials in multiple different countries and multiple different currencies, and needing a way to move large amounts of money across borders with as little, traceability and maximum secrecy as possible. This technology, Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, the blockchain came about. I'm not saying I know who wrote the first Bitcoin blockchain and all that, but it was still very much being written at the time he took control of it, because that's how it works. There was actually a group of core developers, 5 main core developers, and he was in control of 3 of them, according to these emails.
Interesting.
So then fast forward to 2014, December, he puts in $3 million into Coinbase. This is after he's been a part of shaping Bitcoin to begin with. And so from 2014 to 2018, it goes up considerably. He sells half of his controlling stake in Coinbase for $15 million. And then the guy that brokered that deal was a former child star, a child actor named Brock Pierce from the movie The Mighty Ducks. Again, who knows? Could be Epstein's son, for all I know. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
But anyways, and then there's connections to MIT donating money to the digital currency initiative and like all this stuff, like foundational stuff that a lot of Bitcoin bros don't even know like what this stuff is or where it begins and the origin stories of it. But what I'm now calling is pedocoin, and just Bitcoin, pedocoin.
So we can't assume that it was Epstein that created Bitcoin, but I feel that it's pretty safe to assume that he's at least connected to someone or some entity that is behind it. Because I've heard of speculation that it was a CIA initiative, which would not be surprising at all if the CIA created it. I don't think the story of like it was this person who, just wanted like, whatever, like financial freedom, because like the whole argument with Bitcoin is that it's all public ledger and, like it's different to banking because, they can keep things private and whatever. And it's like, well, look at the way that cryptocurrency has been set up. You have exchanges that you pay fees on every transaction. Who else does that? Banks.
Yeah, banks.
And public ledger there's lots of ways that you can cover up who you are and where you're sending money and things like that. So yeah, like the story that it was this person that, you know, had all good intentions and set this up because it was the future and it was going to set people free. Like, I don't believe that for a second.
No. Yeah. And it's my opinion that it was shaped out of the necessity for covert transactions worldwide for specifically child trafficking. And so Bitcoin in particular, like, yeah, I'm kind of over it. I know a lot of people some people have put their life savings into it. And this isn't to like guilt trip everybody, but we're now at a crossroads with all this. So I want to point that out. The crossroads is something that I learned about from Crow 777 when they talked about Mercury. And it's been interesting to me. I have Mercury in a strong placement in my chart, in my astrology. But Mercury, the symbol of it is like a circle. There's like a little half horseshoe on top of the circle. And then below it is this cross. And the cross represents the crossroads. The circle could represent like the sun, like it's at the crossroads of the sun, because Mercury will literally transit the sun. You'll see it crossing through it sometimes. But the crossroads is an important esoteric thing to be aware of, but it's such a powerful point because it's not just that, you know, you have to make a choice right, left. You can keep going the way you're going, but it's also a time where you can make a decision to do something else, to build something else. And right now, Mercury is in Aquarius. In fact, we have a stellium of different planets or wandering stars in Aquarius. Pluto's in Aquarius. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, that's what Pluto is revealing, this principle, this archetype of, you know, what is deep, what is hidden, what is buried will be revealed. And you can kind of see that as Pluto goes from sign to sign, you can start seeing correlations with these deep things that are like digging deep, churning, bringing up to the surface, things that were pushed down and hidden. So I encourage you not to despair, not to guilt trip yourself, you know, but the temptation of being rich off of Bitcoin, like I think it's time to let that go. Because you look at all the money that he made. He made 15 million or more, probably like 30 million in a few years, Epstein did, by investing in Coinbase because he has insider knowledge. And like these guys do insider trading all the time. Congressmen do it. Senators do it. They make millions and millions of dollars. And if you look at that and you feel that twinge of jealousy and like, oh, they've got all this money and I just want to go grab all this. If you feel that, that's part of being human, but just know that that is the path that draws you in to being like them. So yes, I believe that we can make honorable decisions and become wealthy at some point as well, but it does take some serious responsibility to make sure that we're doing it in the right way, through the right modes of investment. And maybe we don't get ahead as fast as those doing this, but we also don't end up, you know, whether or not he killed himself in jail or he escaped to Israel, which actually I've got a video for that if you guys want to talk about that. I
haven't seen this.
So, but I'll just finish what I was saying real quick. Epstein, in the long run, at the end of the day, like they've lost. They're losing, they have lost. They lost the second they decided that they were going to hurt little children, and the second they were going to use that as leverage to gain political control and influence and power, and like whether it's the whole freaking nation of Israel, that like the Mossad that's behind it and all of that. They might feel like they're on top at the moment, but this shit collapses as like way faster than it was built. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like they say in investing, the what is it? The bull. What's a bull market or bear market that goes down? The bear take the stairs, the bulls go out the window. Or is it the opposite way?
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah. Anyways, it crashes faster than it goes up. And same thing with their control.
Yeah. Well, when you understand how these things like truly are operating, I mean, I don't imagine any of our listeners are thinking like, I want to be as rich as them, because it's like, it's dirty money. Yeah. It's like drug dealer money. Like that's not, you don't want to, like when you understand, and again, I think our listeners, you know, understand this principle that money is an energy exchange. Mm-hmm. So it's very much predicated on what that money is being exchanged for. And so when these large scale institutions, when there is so much corruption and, heinous acts going on behind the scenes and this money's involved, like, you wouldn't want to touch that. Like, I don't want to touch that. I don't want any part of it.
No. And think about that with the, like clearing the chemtrail stuff. There's so much online. I mean, there's a lot of truth to it. I think there's some stuff where people make claims they can't really back up, or they don't care to. They just want to say everything. Every line in the sky is a chemtrail and it's poisonous and we're all being sprayed like bugs. Maybe not. But it's like, what are you doing about it? How much, if that's true, if every line in the sky is a operation to spray chemicals down on us, to poison us, make us, slow us down, give us Alzheimer's, whatever. And by going out there and speaking to it and commanding that it dissipate, and it does, like, you just offset millions of dollars of effort and time and buying loyalty by, bribing or like blackmailing pilots and whatever they do to do this stuff. You just counteracted that with standing in your power and saying and commanding. And that is an offset to all this money as well. So it's time to re-examine what we look at as where true power comes from and where true value is. And I'll give you a hint. It's not in US dollars, because that could be burnt up in in one fell swoop. So anyways, and this is also, just beware, this next video, it's like a minute long, but this also doesn't really matter. But it's just something to be aware of. And this could be AI, but
okay, so that angle I got yesterday was really good, and it definitely looked like Jeffrey Epstein.
It really
but
does
the
look
angle
like him.
that they put out today, no doubt in my mind, that is 1000% Jeffrey Epstein.
and notice he said the angle they put out today. Who's they?
Yeah.
Who are they? Who's putting out these images of Epstein?
Well, obviously the media of some sort.
Doesn't look like anybody else. But what I keep coming back to, you guys, is Epstein's been passed for like almost 7 years. So why now that they released all, quote unquote, of the Epstein files, does this homeless guy who looks just like Jeffrey Epstein make a public appearance? I know I'm not the only one that feels like that's just a pretty crazy coincidence. Oh yeah, they conveniently got like 4 or 5 different shots of him, not trying to hide or do anything at all. Just walking around in broad daylight. Nothing happens for a reason.
And I'll point out his bodyguards look like clones as well.
I was going to say, he looks like he's got, surrounded by security.
Yeah, and their faces look really similar. Look at these guys. They look,
Yeah, that
They
doesn't
just look very similar.
That does not surprise me at all. Like I said, I don't believe for a second that he died in prison. It was,
and they
there's no
made
way.
sure to get the shot with the sign that says Tel Aviv in the background.
Yeah, right.
So that stuff's put out intentionally.
Yeah,
know,
totally.
The blackmail operation, they might think is complete. They might think it's, like they did it. They got away with it. But you know who wasn't in control? You know who wasn't on the Epstein list? He didn't need any of that. You know who's free from all that? Here's one. Here's one you'll like.
Jay-Z's in the Epstein files. Pusha T was in the Epstein file. Chris Tucker was in the Epstein files. Come on, man. But you know who's not in the Epstein files? And I just saw this on Instagram. You know who's not? Motherfucking Charlie Sheen, big dog. This fool was just crazy for the love of the game. And I respect that shit, okay? Mr. 2.5 Men. Mr. 3 hookers in one night. Mr. Tiger's Blood. Mr. Cocaine out of my butthole. That is Charlie Sheen. What's up, big dog?
Oh, that's so funny. I know some of the craziest people in Hollywood and in the media. Like, you would think they're in on this stuff, but they're just like legit gone mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. So that's a little levity. But yeah,
Yeah.
he doesn't need a, party island to do crazy shit. And, as far as I know, he was just, Charlie Sheen was just, with adult hookers doing his thing, which I don't condone, but that's not kids. So
Yeah. Yeah. And whatever he wants to do in his spare time,
yeah. And it sounds like he learned his lesson. If you haven't listened to that interview that he did on Tucker Carlson,
No, I haven't.
it's interesting and it's funny because it's like, Tucker Carlson and Charlie Sheen have a lot more in common than you might think. They couldn't be from like two, but it's like they grew up on the same street is what it sounded like.
Yeah.
Not literally, but just, yeah.
Well, all that to say, we've already said it, but just to, further to what you just said earlier and about like being at this crossroad. So yeah, I mean, start with enacting your will, speaking it out, so important. And obviously, you might only be one person, but the more of us that do that, and I do believe that worldwide, we have reached a critical mass in terms of people that are doing things with more intention, more consciously, actively tipping the scales the other way on the side of good. And that's why we're seeing so many shifts happen on Earth at this current time. But also just like, when you say this crossroad point, and we all find ourselves at that point, at some time or another. It's like, what do you choose in that moment? What can you choose differently? How can you choose something that is more intentional? So when we're talking about this kind of stuff, it's like knowing that, the example I'm going to give is like, institutions like BlackRock and Vanguard. Now, we know a lot of people, I'm sure listening to this show, know that they're highly corrupt. They're very much pushing agendas, all of this stuff, and they own so many different things. So, just do a bit of due diligence and look at the things that, whether you're investing in them, whether you're just purchasing the products of these companies, like whatever it may be, and just doing it with more intention. Like, do you want to be buying into an organization or an institution or a system that is actively trying to put evil into the world, or at the very least just acting so selfishly that they have no care for anyone else but themselves? And it starts there. And, that's what we're all about here at this show, is taking personal responsibility, doing what you can, as small as it may seem, and just trusting that you are going to have an impact.
Yeah. Yeah, it's time to be much more connect with your intention and to really look at things and consider. You don't have to overly analyze every little thing, but it's like, again, we're bringing some information. You can choose. You can have the empowerment. You can choose to be empowered, or you can choose to
be a victim,
to be hopeless and be a victim and, complain. Oh, one other thing, do with this as you will, but remember I said Epstein was convicted in 2008 of, basically being a predator, child predator and all that. Didn't really go to a real jail. The guy that let him off, basically, who sentenced him to 12 hours of doing whatever you want every day for the next 13 months or whatever, Alexander Acosta, is on the board as of 2025 of this news agency that I actually really enjoyed watching at first. It's called Newsmax. Newsmax has been fairly supportive of Trump and this right-wing initiative and all this stuff. If you look on their website, they have articles about all the Epstein stuff, and they're like, exposing all the things, right? Or they're reporting on it, and it's fair and it's just, and it looks really good. Not to just blackpill, because that's not what I'm about, but I would just read Newsmax knowing that one of their board of directors was intimately involved in Epstein staying loose, staying on the street, doing his, evil shit. So you can look that up if you want.
Yeah. And also, like, you don't have to go and look into like every single thing that you buy or do and like check if it's like, who it's owned by and whatever. Again, this isn't about like being fearful or being like taking it to an extreme. It's just about, again, like doing what you can. And if you do, engage in something, like we still shop at Kohl's, everyone's like, oh, the big supermarket chains or whatever, you can't. It's just like, there's just some things I just can't get anywhere else here. And, but most of our food we buy from the markets and whatever. So again, it's just like, do what you can. But it's also a case of like, once you know better, do better and be better.
Yeah. And I want to write this out or read this out. This goes with what you're saying. The antidote to the tricked and lied to energy is the reclamation of your own creative power. And so this show, we go through a lot of effort to explore what that is, what that means, what our actual energy is. It is that life force energy. It's what's connected to this internal drive to uncover the truth and to share that with others and call people to account for things. But this creative energy, this creative drive is putting out into the world. And so I encourage you to put something out into the world that's good. Love your family, connect with the Creator as often as possible, share that energy, put that energy into your kids, and teach them how to bring that out to the rest of the world. That is the antidote to all this evil stuff that they're doing, oftentimes to their own kids. These ruling elites, we're like the opposite side of that, where we're just like creating the best life for our kids possible, teaching them to walk in the way of truth. And if you feel like the odds are stacked against you, which it can feel like that, and it definitely looks like that, because they spend a lot of money making it seem like that. If you feel like the odds are stacked against you and you have this insurmountable mountain ahead, I'd like to read you the Possibility Thinker's Creed. It's something I heard about from this guy, Kevin Trudeau, but it was written by Dr. Robert H. Schuller. When faced with a mountain, I will not quit. I will keep on striving until I climb over, find a pass through, tunnel underneath, or simply stay and turn the mountain into a gold mine with God's help. So think about that. If you can't even get past that mountain, it's like, what lesson can you derive from that obstacle that creates so much value that it's, you couldn't think, oh, wow, 10, 20 years from now, if that crazy stuff didn't happen, I never would have made these decisions and this never would have come to fruition. So be grateful for it in the moment, despite the darkness, but don't just sit down and quit, but actively engage. And all of us working together with this can do our part, and we are shaping the future. As long as we stay engaged and stay connected and positive and keep going in to visit the Creator within the way that He, the Creator God, the Spirit meets us, that's very, very potent. It's beyond value. It's beyond being putting, a number to it, however many Bitcoin, how many millions of dollars. It's way more valuable than that. So if you choose to make that reality, that will be the reality.
Preach.
All right. Well,
thanks for hanging out with us, guys. There's a lot of takeaways there. So hope that you enjoyed it. Would love to hear what you think, because there is, a lot, this is what a lot of people are talking about. But again, we like the different perspectives that are out there, not just what's being pushed in mainstream media. So we'd love to hear from you. Check our links in the show notes. There's various ways that you can reach out to us. All the links are there. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
All right. Catch you later.
Thanks for tuning in to the Natural AF podcast, where we explore holistic healing modalities, mindsets, and methods that reconnect us to nature and our natural state of being.
If something resonated, share this episode and see the show notes for our guest links, as well as all of our discount codes for our aligned affiliates and Natural Art Form, where we handcraft a range of organic, natural remedies to help support your body's natural healing abilities and help support the show.
If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please take a few seconds to leave us a rating and review. And if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, hit the like button and drop us a comment, and be sure to subscribe to our channel for the latest updates.
We're not here to conform. We're here to remember what's real. So step into your power, be curious, and be natural AF.